living within your means? What does that mean in a sense? And how can you ensure that you are living within your means?
What you need, what you make.
Is it a need? Is it a want?
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of People and Money. This is a show where we talk specifically about money. We bring experts who work with money on a daily basis and help people around with dealing with their finances. As usual, our expert is Ncumisa Nodaka. Ncumisa, welcome.
Hi Stan, thank you so much for having me.
So Ncumisa is a managing director and founder of Ncumisa Chartered Accounting and Auditing, based in Port Elizabeth, in South Africa.
So today we are talking about what are monthly expenses.
Why is it important for us actually to break down a typical household monthly expenses?
It's so important for us as individuals to look at our household expenses because that will give us an idea of if the money that we are earning or the money that is coming into the household, is it enough to sustain this family or this individual? And if it's not, then obviously one needs to then start looking at other options, or maybe a side hustle or an additional activity where additional money then needs to flow into the household. And then moving on to just address your initial question, the type of expenses. I remember from our last episode, we touched a bit on needs and wants. So your monthly expenses are also then influenced by your needs versus your wants, where you have to list them in terms of priority. Things like rent or a bond payment. I mean, that is a need because we all need shelter.
Yeah, definitely. But the amount of rent you must pay, it can get into a want. It's some of those gray areas we were talking about. Yeah, and that's a great point. So you are saying in terms of your expenses, so we have kind of or your monthly expenses, you've got those that you have to have. It's a basic that if you do not have this, you can't live your life. Like the example you have given of rental. I think I can think of others like, paying for electricity, paying for water, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What are the examples? Yeah.
I think we've compiled a list of those examples. Obviously, the list is not all encompassing, but just to give you an idea of what type of monthly expenses, things like in fuel or groceries, which is food and other toiletries that you may need within the household, things like school fees, money to pay your domestic, cell phone contract, childcare, if your children need aftercare when they come back from school. Those are just a number of items that would classify as a monthly expense.
And whilst we are there, Ncumisa, I know someone might say, this is very simplistic. Why do we need to talk about expenses, monthly expenses, and everyone would know? And what I would say is, like, I've been in a few situations personally where I'm applying for a loan or applying for something that I need, and the bank always asks you, what are your monthly expenses? And one thing I figured out is a lot of times you actually forget a lot of your expenses.
Most definitely. And it's not only you. A lot of people fall into that trap.
Yeah. And also partly at times, it's not necessarily that you forget, but usually at times the consultant who's helping you, who wants to make sure that you get this loan, or it's a bond for a house or for a car or whatever, they'll tell you, okay, let's just put $500 or 5,000 rand. But you then go ahead with whatever they're suggesting for you without compiling your expenses, and you get debt on top, which you won't be able to service because you didn't grow a list of your expenses. And if I look at even the list that we were showing earlier, whenever I write my list of expenses, it's not that long. Meaning I forget.
Oh, yes, because what I also put on there is I know individuals that have a daily cup of coffee before they reach the office, or sometimes they pop out of the office and go buy a 25 Rand cup coffee. Now, if you do that Monday to Friday, 25 times 5 times 4 weeks in a month times 12. Imagine how much money that goes unaccounted that you are spending. And it's not only that, but it's small monies that you often just take out that you don't account for, that sometimes you then fall into the trap of thinking you have more money than what you have in the bank. And then when you look at your balance, you're like, but where did it all go?
Yeah, it happens a lot where you look at you know how much money you left in the bank account. And maybe 2 weeks down the line, you go into a bank account and be like, no, man, something is wrong. And you try to look for a big number and you can't find a big number. And all that money went into these small numbers. And you spoke about coffee. I lived in Canada for some time. And there's what is called Tim Hortons. It's like the flagship coffee. When you get to work, people say, oh, let's go for Timmy's. Let's go to meet Timmy's. Yeah. And you go there, you buy coffee. After lunch, people say, let's go to Timmy's. And when you look at it, you're buying $5 in the morning, $5 in the afternoon. That's $10 in a day. Like you say, $50 in a week. That's $200 that you need to budget for in a month. But you don't think that way. And I see on the list you added alcohol. Tell me about that one.
So a lot of people don't really budget the amount of money that they actually spend on alcohol. And I mean, if that is an item where you constantly go out every weekend, you might be going out with your friends or family, and you buy alcohol for people or you buy alcohol for yourself. And that money needs to be accounted for because it's also part of those coffee monies that you tend to forget. And I think one item that is not included in our list, but is definitely something that we should all be mindful of is bank charges. Because so many a time, those we've got e-wallets in South Africa, or cash send imali. Now, those functions, yes, it's nice and convenient to have, but the bank charges you for that. And it is something that we often don't interrogate our bank statement enough to ensure that we are accounting for every item where money is spent.
Yeah, and talking about bank charges as well, and that's where really this becomes critical. I know my budgeting, I always, especially when I was in South Africa, I always had my bank charges on. What was good about it, because I had an account where I had a fixed amount that I pay for my bank charges. And a lot of people find themselves in that trap as well, where you don't have that kind of an account. So you do a lot of transactions. And at the end of the month, you don't calculate how much am I spending on bank charges, and not realizing that actually you are spending so much money on bank charges, which is actually money that you essentially are just losing. Whilst maybe if you were in a kind of like an account where you have a fixed bank charges, on a monthly basis, it will be great. Just another one. I see you have childcare, after school care, but I want to throw in something in there. For those who have got children that are staying with, maybe other mothers, it's also maintenance of that has to be on the budget. Although maybe it might be something that is not comfortable to discuss in the family, but it should surely be there because that's something that you're spending money on.
Yes, definitely. Everything that you're spending money on needs to be there. If you are sending money home and you're building your parents a home, which is something that a lot of Black individuals go through, that also needs to be included in your budget. A budget needs to be as realistic as possible and even close to the actual figures as possible. So it is something that you need to relook at your monthly expenses every month, so that if in this month you've budgeted items that maybe you forgot about some of the actual amounts that went through your bank statement, so that in next month you are able to then include those items so that you can track your spending. And even I would even push it to even say on a weekly basis, look at how much you're spending, so that in the other 3.5 weeks of the month that's left over, you can then kind of slow down or rectify whatever the situation is.
Yeah, great. Ncumisa, thank you so much. We can talk about this more and more. I never I never budget for personal grooming separately, because I just think when you buy toiletries, it's covered. But I was trying to think what exactly is this. So that's maybe for going to the barber and, things like that. At least I'm fortunate I don't have beard, so but this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stan. Looking forward to the next session.
To the next one. What are we talking about in the next one, by the way?
So in the next session, we talk about what are variable and what are fixed costs or expenses. And we delve deeper into that topic.
Wow, great. Cheers. Bye.
All right.